Hi there, I'm Michael Bovey, your debt settlement expert here at Resolve, and I want to talk to you about phone calls. Debt collection phone calls are part of any debt settlement program because you cannot settle debt without being late, and not just by a little bit, by a lot of bit. And that means that you're going to have all of this time that collectors and banks and debt buyers and all of these guys are trying to hound you through the phone. It's their primary way of contacting you for unsecured debt. So if you are not quite late enough to where they've cut your ability off and their user profile on the website, on the bank's website, you go log in, and if you can still make changes, this is a useful tool. If you change your number to your landline, or if maybe you have like a bundle internet package that has a landline, you didn't ever set it up, but maybe you have it and you can do that and it will be a voicemail trap. Or what I often encourage people to do is use Google Voice, which is really simple and easy and free to set up. You Google how to set up Google Voice. You get your Google number. It's a real phone number. You log into the bank. You change the number to this other number, whatever it is. And in Google Voice, make sure you check off the Do Not Disturb box, because that means, Google's set up to where people dial that number and it goes and tries to find you and announces the caller. Well, you don't even want that because it's still going to bother you. So what you want is just check that Do Not Disturb box. People that call the number immediately are going to hear your voicemail. And then if they leave one, it will forward it to you transcribed or as an audio file. So what you want is to make sure that you're not disturbed, and obviously update the banks that you can still make those changes with. But also, and this is not just for those of you that still have the opportunity to change your number in the bank systems and haven't been locked out by making changes, but for all of us, that you want a bank, you want a debt collector to know that they've reached you. If all they hear is you've reached 800-555-1212, great. Okay, that's the number that matches on the screen. All that tells them is they know how to dial a phone. They don't know if it's you, and numbers change all the time, right? So when you are dealing with debt collectors, whether it's your cell phone and you're just going to record a custom greeting or one of these other options like Google Voice, record your first and last name. Hi, you've reached Michael Bovey. I'm not available to take your call right now. Please leave a message. I'll call you back. Why? Well, it prevents them often from doing what's called the dial around, right? So if you cannot be reached and they don't know even if it's you, they start dialing family. They start dialing work numbers. They start dialing neighbors. There's some really, really sophisticated skip tracing software out there that these collectors use, and it's kind of disruptive, right? To have your neighbor come by, knock on your door and say, hey, somebody didn't really say what it was, but they're trying to reach you. Here you go. And it's this toll-free number to a collection agency. Don't kid yourself. It happens. And then there's also the fact that they will reach your emergency contact, your bank, right? We forget that we give this information when we open these credit cards, but who's your emergency contact, and you write it down, and it's like, for me, that's my mom. Well, I don't want my mom, before I was married anyway, getting these phone calls. Who's your emergency contact, right? So preventing that dial around is as simple often enough as making sure that they know they've reached the right person when they dial you. Now, when do you pick up? Probably never. Okay, so you're in your Resolve user profile and you've started a debt settlement plan. It is nearly almost exclusively all about just maintaining radio silence for anybody that's calling you until such time as you can negotiate the payoff, and then of course you're never going to hear from them again. Now you've got negotiators on the platform that are going to go do that for you and do all the talking and the back and forth and the offer and counter offer and all of that stuff. So it's not necessary for you to pick up the phone. In fact, it's usually counterproductive. You saying one thing to them and we don't know what you said, or your negotiator doesn't know what you said, and then sometimes those things can contradict. Plus, in my experience of over 20 years of doing this, we as consumers, I'll be first one to tell you, I'm talky. I give too much information, right? And you may not even know that you're doing it when you're having a cordial conversation or what you think might be. Because sometimes these collectors are really helpful, especially the banks, especially certain banks. Like I pick on Chase, one of my favorite banks, for the way that they train collectors. They're very honest. They're not overly abrupt. You can kind of believe what they say, and that's not always the case. In fact, I would say that that's not normally the case. So you really don't need to be led astray, and you don't want to be giving too much information, and you already have somebody that you're going to engage in that process when you've got enough money saved up in your account. So as far as phone calls go, it's unsettling. They dial all the time. There's call blocking software that's coming out more and more frequently from actually Sprint and Verizon and AT&T. So those kind of tools are becoming more robust. And so there's ways for you to manage, how often you're interrupted by that stuff. But I like make sure that you leave your first and last name on your voicemail so it prevents some of the aggravation that you get from other people reaching out to you. Did you see, who's this? Who's trying to reach you? Anyway, if you have questions, if you have concerns about any of the phone calls that you've gotten while you're engaged in the user profile here at Resolve and working through your debt settlement program, talk to your counselor. Email us. You can email your counselor on any of your user profile, wherever there's a helpline or a help button. That's actually set up to communicate directly with your counselor and get questions answered, share any information, any conversations that you might have had. And one other thing, if you want to get off the phone with a debt collector, you can hang up on them. It's not like they can steal your birthday, but I would suggest that you stop a phone call. You probably didn't even mean to pick it up. It's just you're distracted, phone's ringing, you pick it up, it's them. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here right now. So use some kind of talk off that you would use even with somebody you want to talk with, right? So I'm sorry, I'm driving, right? Nobody wants a distracted driver, even a debt collector, hopefully. Or I'm sorry, I can't talk right now, I'm with somebody. Well, you tell a debt collector that you're with somebody and they're calling you about an embarrassing topic that you're late on a bill. They know you're not going to have an open conversation about that standing next to a coworker or at the supermarket. So those are some real easy ways to get off the phone quickly. And I'll see you on the next video.